this is a wild herb that everyone sees as a weed in America, but everyone uses around the world. And all these people from around the world commented, yeah, and they're like, yeah, this is how we use it. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Everyone cannot stand this plant, and they pull it out of their garden, but it's so persistent, and you cannot get rid of it. And so that speaks about its medicine. And it looks like a lot of people say the cerebellum of the brain. And so I think in India, they saw it as the doctrine of signatures, and they said that it was really good for the brain.
Welcome to the Herbs with Rosalee podcast, a show exploring how herbs heal as medicine, as food, and through connecting with the living world around you. Well, today's episode is about Pennywort, a plant that, depending on where you live, might be something you've spent years trying to get rid of. And my guest is April Punsalan, who has a fascinating background that includes botany and the U.S. Forest Service. So in this episode, we talk about why Pennywort is cherished in many places around the world, why April sees it as this plant rich in chlorophyll and antioxidants, and how she likes to work with it in simple, everyday ways that feel more like nourishment than taking something. If you've ever looked at a plant in your yard and thought, ugh, not you again, this one might change your perspective. If you enjoy this episode, please give it a thumbs up so more plant lovers can find us. And be sure to stay tuned until the very end for your herbal tidbit. April, I'm thrilled to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for the invite.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to hearing about the plant you've chosen because I will say completely new to me. So I'm excited. I'm really excited for your recipe as well. But before we get there, I'm also very interested to hear about all the things that have led you on this plant path because you have this incredible background, U.S. Forest Service, botany, on and on. I'm going to let you tell your own story, but I'm excited to hear it.
Thanks for bringing me on the show. It's nice to finally get to meet you, even though we're virtual. I feel like the herbal world is such a small world, and so I know like we are connected, even though we haven't met yet. So thank you. The plants, I feel they definitely saved my life, and that I was very blessed to find the path at a young age. I was in horticulture, but I actually was signed up for computers. And this was, I'm going to give away my age. This was like 1997. And I was computers because computers were going to be the thing, right? And Mom was like, you got to do computers. That's where all the money's at. And I was in there and I was falling behind terribly. And we did a tour of the school, and I saw a greenhouse, and there was a sweet, beautiful woman with these students around her. It was like Eric was his name, and then this other, I forget the other girl's name, and they were planting pansies. And I was like, what is that? And she said horticulture. And it was a 2-year program, so I had to stay in school for another year if I wanted to do it. And my mom was very hesitant, but then the counselor, whose name was Miss Hart, was like, hey, if she really loves it, you should let her. And so my mom did. And then it was kind of like, that was just how I found myself. And then I was staying, after school, reading Birds in Bloom magazine, and she fostered my love for herbs, and she bought even organic herb seeds, and had me do state fair competitions with herbal shampoo and lotions. And so I started making herbal medicine and herbal products in high school. And my mom was a single mother and had 3 children, and we didn't have health insurance. And so I healed myself with plants, and I had James Duke, the Green Pharmacy.
Yeah.
And I read that, and Rodell's Herbal Encyclopedia, which I still pull out that book, which I'm like, wow, that says a lot about that book. And so that was that. But my mom, being raised by a single mother and being poor, according to society, whatever, she was like, you're going to get your master's. It was drilled into my head because both of my aunts had their masters, and they would, help my mom. They would send her money. And so my mom was like, you're going to do that, and you're not going to struggle like me. And so I kind of knew that was going to be my path, that I was going to go. And so I did botany because I love plants, obviously. And I went to UNCA, Asheville, and Western Carolina University. And I was able to be in the Southern Appalachian Mountains, which you probably know is a biological hotspot for plants, because they're like, they say that they used to be a part of the Himalayan mountains and they never experienced glaciation. So all these northern species just retreated to the Southern Appalachian Mountains, but there's still these relictual species on the top of the, 5,000 feet above elevation. And I got to train with some of the best botanists in the Southeast. And so I was given the assignment to find these rare plants in the middle of the woods. And so to find the rare plants, you've got to know all the common ones. And so I started working on that and learning all the flora. And then my husband was like, hey, you got to get me out of Asheville because I am half Filipino and I got eczema in the winter and I play reggae music. And I'm like, look, honey, you need to sit up bass. You need to learn how to play bluegrass music. You're going to get gigs. And he's like, I'm not getting any gigs here. I'm dying. And I'm like, okay. And at that time, they were like, April, you have to reapply for your job because we want to increase the grade level. And you got to get on USA Jobs. And I'm like, I've never been on USA Jobs. Let me just get on there, right? Since I have to compete for my job. So I get on there and lo and behold, there's a botanist position in Charleston, South Carolina with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And everyone said, like, you're not going to get that job. Like, Department of Interior just hires Department of Interior. You're a Department of Ag. But I was like, hey, and this is for anyone who ever wants a USA job, botanist job. I highly recommend calling the point of contact because they're like, they don't have anyone in mind for this job. And so next thing you know, it was like a month later, I moved to Charleston and took the botanist position for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which was then protecting federally endangered plants across the East Coast. That's wholly different because that's policy. No longer was I really in the field. I had to work really hard to get in the field, and I had to do a lot of rigorous science. But what that showed me was how much habitat destruction there is and how disconnected humans were. And so it was almost like spirit was like, okay, you have to teach now. Because at this point, I'm like looking at all these amazing plants and most of them are edible and medicinal, but very few people are connecting with them. And I just see this missing link of like, hey, this is the problem, right? Because if we could save thousands and millions of acres of land as conservationists, but people don't even know how to connect with it anymore. And people don't even know what we're really doing in the offices, and we're working so hard. And I worked really hard to see if a species was going to be federally listed, and it wasn't. And that was okay, but all that being said is that it's federal government is never going to save and protect all the species. And so I had to teach. And so that's when I left. Well, I actually formed the school, and this is for people that want to leave their 9 to 5 and they have a side hustle. Definitely keep doing it because that's what I did. I did that for 3 years. And at that time, when I first started, I just called it Healing Plant Traditions. I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew I was doing something different, And then it transformed into Yohola Herbal School. And then it transformed into now Wild Herb Academy. Because I just wanted to be clear that I'm focusing mostly on wild plants. And so that's how that happened. That was a long story, but that's it.
I'm curious just to know a little bit more about what it was like to work for the Department of the Interior, to this sort of thing, because I just really have no idea. I feel like I should come up with a clever question, but I'm not sure what that question is. But just like, what kind of work did you do, and what did you find like inspiring or rewarding, and maybe what did you find challenging in that role?
That's a good question.
Sure.
Yeah, it's been a long time too. And I was in that position for 8 years, which is crazy. Wow. That was a long time. And I went in there hot. Like, I had all this energy and started the South Carolina Plant Conservation Alliance. I would say the biggest thing is like protecting these plants, because before they didn't have a botanist. The federal government, the Department of Interior didn't have any botanists on the East Coast at all. It was just fish and wildlife biologists because they didn't see, because for plants, there's no take, right? They're like for a wildlife species, it's different. And there's going to be a lot more, like the project's going to stop, but for a plant, not very much. So the fact that they hired a botanist was a huge deal. But my most rewarding part was actually being able to come in and have a voice for these plants that hadn't had it. I'll give you one example. Schweins's sunflower, federally endangered sunflower. every time DOT would do a project, they would just move the flowers and they would put it in a museum called the Brattonsville Museum, and they would just plant them there. And I was like, that's not conservation or recovery, because now it's just going to be at a museum and these populations aren't functioning as populations. I was like, we're going to dig them up, we're going to safeguard them, and then when you're done with the DOT project, we're putting them back. And it was nice to be there, to be in that role, and to really like be able to be a voice for the plants. And everyone was really honored that. Like, everyone came to me for advice. It was amazing how much I was respected in that role. And it wasn't like, oh my gosh, we have a botanist. It was like, we have a botanist, we can go ask her. So it was hard to leave. The hardest part was having to do all the policy-driven work and to be within the policy and do these 5-year reviews. So when you become a botanist or a fish and wildlife biologist for the federal and for U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, you have to do what's called 5-year reviews, and they'll give you like certain species. Like, you're now the national lead for X, Y, and Z, and you're responsible for the recovery. And when you get that, it feels great, because you're like, oh my gosh, I can work with all these partners, I can do all this great work. And you can. Like, there are no limitations on what a fish and wildlife biologist or botanist can do with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Barely, if you have the energy. But then when you get into like the policy of everything you have to send the government or you have to submit, it's like, oh gosh, it's like writing a master's again. And so when I had to do that, it's called a species status assessment to determine if a species was going to be federally listed. It was like a whole year, and it was like a 300-page document. That's kind of when I was like, I didn't sign up for this. Like, I can't do this work. I have to be outside. I have to be with the plants. And at that time, that's when it was like, I have to teach, But anyway, so the most rewarding is like actually getting to help the plants. And then the most challenging is all that writing that you have to do.
But it is interesting to think about that, just because I'm sure most botanists, we want to be with the plants. Just even one of my good friends is works for Fish and Wildlife, and he's a fish botanist, a fish biologist, and he loves being in the rivers with the fish. So I can imagine that's kind of a tough one on that. Hey there, just a quick note. If you'd like to hear from me in a more personal way, I'd love to have you in my free text community. I send a couple of texts every week, things like behind the scenes updates, herbal thoughts that I'm chewing on, and little sparks of joy I don't always share anywhere else. To join, just text the word ROOT to 1-509-383-8398. And if you ever want to break up, no hard feelings. Just text STOP to the same number and you'll be opted out immediately. My goal is to make it so juicy and so fun that you look forward to getting my texts each week. Okay, now back to the show. I imagine that I know the answer to this, but I'm just curious to ask, what do you see as some of the biggest challenges facing plants in terms of, being endangered and just the challenges that plants are facing right now?
I feel on the East Coast, that's a really good question. On the East Coast, fire, because a lot of these ecosystems were fire adapted. And because we have so many roads and schools and houses, we can't do the fire. And so, I had to go back to like manuscripts and different things from early explorers from the 1700s. And they would say that the indigenous people lit the woods on fire from October until March, and there are plants that we'll never see come back because we're not able to do that. And so these ecosystems can't function the way that they used to because of so much degradation and land alteration. But yeah, definitely all the stuff we buy from Amazon, every time we click purchase, that's a huge impact. So our consumerism, I think, is huge. And we don't really see it because it's not a direct impact. But as a former botanist, I would have to clear all the Amazon centers. Every time a distribution center, any kind of distribution center went in, it would be like hundreds and hundreds of acres. So all the stuff that we buy has to be stored somewhere. And so I would just think like our insatiable desire for stuff and that driving that consumerism is the biggest risk to species. So we could think about it every time.
Because that then is like fueling habitat destruction. Sorry, I just wanted to,
Yeah, it's fueling habitat destruction. It's like, I think of it as a take. Like every time we buy something, whether it's this microphone I'm talking in or that blue folder over there or my reader glasses. It's a take from the environment. So we have to think about it in terms of resources and really try and minimize how much stuff that we buy day to day, because it really does have an impact on the habitat. Somewhere it's having an impact. And then too, just the disconnection between humans and nature. That's huge. There's that disconnect. And I think, like, I don't know if you ever heard of Doug Tallamy, you would love him, but he says nature's best hope is you. And he has a book, and I love it. Nature's best hope is you. And he says, if all of us let our yards rewild and we let the wild plants come in, then we would have way more land than all the national parks in the nation. And so I think I love that approach, that it's really has to start with us, instead of thinking that it's like going to be in the federal government's hands or policy. We really have to take responsibility for it, even if we're in an apartment, even if we're in, the city and we have a tiny yard, like we can make a difference.
Oh, that's beautiful, April. I love thinking about that too. Just all of those lawns out there that could be rewilded. And I'm forgetting the book now, but there's a really great book out there talking about just how important our native plants are for our native pollinators and our insects, that, all these relationships that have grown so, for so long and are so strong. But if they don't have their native plants in an area, that's really important. And I think of that flying over suburbs, like literally flying above in a plane and looking down and just seeing like, wow, because where I live, I'm surrounded by native plants. So I kind of forget about that. And then I look at these, like how drastically changed these environments are and how they are missing their native shrubs and plants and all the insects and birds and beings that are longing to be a part of that cycle as well. I also have to go back to what you said the first thing, because I did not expect that when you mentioned fire as being an important missing piece. And my husband is just starting a prescribed burn association, which is working with local landowners to bring fire back to the landscape in sustainable, safe ways. And there's all these, at least on the West Coast, there's a lot of move to do that, and insurance being set up and organizations. And so he works with the DNR and U.S. Forest Service and, working to get this going. It's just kind of starting. And we've had a couple of burns on our property, and it's just so fascinating to watch the plants come back to life in just a really cool way. And through that, as you mentioned, it's a lot of honoring just the indigenous ways of how they've tended the land for so long. And yeah, so anyway, I didn't expect you to say that, and that was a very pleasant surprise. I will definitely be going to tell my handsome French husband about that as soon as we're done.
That's awesome that you have that. You can witness it and you see the cycles. Yeah, because all the nutrients go back to the land when you do it fire. And then there's so many species that depend on that. That's awesome. Yeah, it's really here on the East Coast, really hard, but there's so many species that depend on it. And there are a lot of botanists that are really good, and they will time their excursions based on the last time the fire. They will know that only certain orchids are coming up after that fire. And there's a whole timing thing, I noticed like March fires, some of the plants don't do as good because it's right before some of the spring federally endangered plants would come up. So I would have to try and work with the Forest Service to get them to burn more like in the fall, which tends to be a little bit more natural timing, like the fall instead of early spring and March, especially here in South Carolina, where March is kind of like is the spring, not dormant.
Well, it's so fascinating to hear from that perspective. And so thanks for sharing about that, and just, that role, that botanist role, and just how that might be changing, just hearing about the DOT and just changing the landscape within how we actually conserve plants is really beautiful as well. Hey, it's Rosalee. Creating this podcast has been one of the most rewarding parts of my herbal work. And if you found something meaningful here, whether it's a new perspective, a favorite recipe, or just a sense of calm, I want to let you know there's a good way to go even deeper. It's called the Podcast Circle. Inside, you'll get access to live classes taught by some of my favorite herbal teachers, behind-the-scenes updates, and a beautiful library of herbal resources that we've gathered over the years. But more than that, it's a space to connect with fellow plant lovers who care about the same things you do. And truly, your membership helps make this podcast possible. It's how we keep the episodes coming and the herbal goodness flowing. So if you're ready to be part of something more, something rooted in connection, head over to herbalpodcastcircle.com. I'd love to see you there. Well, the plant that you've chosen, Pennywort, I'm so excited about this because I did not recognize the plant name when I saw it come up, which is, I will say, somewhat rare for me. And so then I looked up the plant and I was like, oh, that plant. I see that plant everywhere, but somehow we've
So,
never really met before. So yeah, I'm just ready to sit and learn from you about this plant. And one question I often like to ask, and I'm especially interested in this for you, is why did you choose this plant of all plants?
I think it's because so I wanted to pick something that's on the West Coast too, right?
Mhm.
And I wanted to pick something that maybe not as many herbalists know about. I wanted to do, because I feel like we share some pretty good common herbs like, lamb's quarter or, violets, and we all love and have a beautiful relationship with those. But Pennywort is one of those ones, hydrocotyle, that in North America, or at least in the United States, not a lot of herbalists are working with. But if you go anywhere else around the world, it's sold as markets. And so it offers us so many benefits. And so I felt like that's why. And also the recipe is super easy. And you were like, give me a recipe. And I'm like, okay, this recipe anyone can do, a busy entrepreneurial woman can make it in a heartbeat, anyone can do it. And so I felt like it would be a good one to share. And it grows on the East Coast and on the West Coast, but different species. And so that's like the whole thing of learning. So whenever I teach, I always teach students Latin names and teach them medical botany, because I want them to know, like, they don't have to rely on the one I have, which is Hydrocotyle bonariensis, or the one that grows here. And then there's Hydrocotyle umbellata, but the one on the West Coast is Hydrocotyle ranunculoides, and there's a couple other ones. And so, like, knowing that just Hydrocotyle spa, which means all the species in Hydrocotyle, it liberates you. And they all have like circular leaves that are super pretty and cute. And yeah, it's just a great herb to befriend. And also chlorophyll. So the recipe, when we get into that, it's all about getting the chlorophyll and the antioxidants into your body. So I see it really as this anti-cancer herb that protects our body from free radicals and aging. Yeah.
Lovely. Well, yeah, where you could start there or dive in somewhere else in terms of plant gifts and all the beauty this little guy has to share with us.
Yeah, so it is it's a very, if you've never seen it, you should Google it, but I imagine you'll maybe share a picture of the recipe. Hydrocotyle, it grows around the world. And in India, they call it Brahmin, and they call it other names. And they don't even a lot of times differentiate between hydrocotyle and gotu-kola. Like, they see them the same. And one time a filmer from Sacred Science came, and he was in my front yard, and he was like, oh my gosh, you have Brahmin. And he was talking about Pennywort. And everyone here weeds it out. Everyone cannot stand this plant, and they pull it out of their garden, but it's so persistent and you cannot get rid of it. And so that speaks about its medicine, because it will spread, and it's closer to the earth, and it has a really cool botany. Like, it has a leaf shape called peltate, so you can hold it like an umbrella. And it's circular, and it's kind of scalloped along the leaf margin. And it looks like, a lot of people say, the cerebellum of the brain. And so I think in India, they saw it as a doctrine of signatures, and they said that it was really good for the brain, and that it has a lot of antioxidants. The way that I see it in the landscape, and I observe it, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, because it survives year round here. It's very resilient. And so that speaks to me that it has a lot of antioxidants, but it doesn't have like a lot of tannins in it or anything that keep us from consuming a decent amount. And so we can consume more of it than other herbs. And it just, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I want to say. It's closer to the earth, which I think is kind of cool. And it has these stoloniferous rhizomes that are underneath the earth, and it travels really far. And the leaves are molecular science and science. Modern research has shown us that the indigenous people knew it, in India, know what they're talking about because it is really, really high in antioxidants, and it has shown to be anti-cancer against many different types of cancer. I don't have them memorized. I went down a rabbit hole with it and read so many peer-reviewed journal articles. But what I started thinking about is just like, I'm just going to take this, like a couple leaves, and just blend it in water. Because a lot of times, for a long time in my herbal path, I made teas, but I am pitta, fire, and I like sometimes these teas have a lot of tannins and they're making my mouth dry. And so I really want like cool, like room temperature. And I really want the chlorophyll and the medicine without like the drying tannins and all that. So I put just the leaves and 2 cups of water and blended it and on high speed. And lo and behold, it just turns this beautiful green color. And so I drink that and I get the antioxidants. But I did play around with it. It's kind of like any new wild herb that you work with, which I highly recommend doing, even if no other person's working with it. And just like dry it and then see, this is what I did. I dried it and I was like, no, the antioxidants die. Like I could just tell I dried it and it was not the same. So I was like, okay, there's something about that. And I think I just lost a lot of the medicine. And so I just kept blending it. And I did a post on my Facebook probably like a couple of months ago and it blew up. I said, this is a wild herb that everyone sees as a weed in America, but everyone uses around the world. And all these people from around the world commented. Everybody, cool. Yeah. And they were like, yeah, this is how we use it. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. And one guy shared with me something that is the best recipe, which I think I put on there. And he did it the same way I did. He uses the leaves, but he uses coconut water. And so I will admit that I am like, I eat to live, right? Not live to eat. And so like it doesn't taste as good. And sometimes I'll add honey, maybe I'll add some mint, but I'm like just doing this right to get the chlorophyll and antioxidants in my body. But when I mixed it with the coconut water, I was like, dang, now this is good. This actually tastes good. Not only is it good for you, but it tastes good. So I highly recommend if you have Pennywort around you, blend it with the coconut water because that's a game changer. But it was cool to hear like these people in other countries using it in a similar way. But you can like even Google it and you can see it at markets, in Mexico and India, and they'll just have big tables full of it. People eat it
fresh, like it's often sold fresh.
It's sold fresh, always sold fresh. And they eat the rhizomes. And there's some literature or ethnobotany that shows that people will make a big tea, like 5 liters, and they'll drink it. And the juice is really good for your skin. The tea is really good for your skin, and it gets rid of freckles. I don't know. I haven't played with it on my skin. I just drink it, and I just like it fresh. But I think, as herbalists, we're all going to find our own way how to connect with the plant, that there are probably a million other ways that you could work with this plant. Like you could put it in facial creams. You could probably put it in infused oils, because anything that's high in antioxidants is going to be great for our skin. But I just haven't gone there with it yet.
Yeah, so your recipe is Hydrocotyle Chlorophyll Refresher, and it was the coconut water that caught my attention because this is basically a succus, a fresh preparation. And I can't say that I've ever considered making a succus with coconut water before, and it really did sound like a super refresher. So that's lovely. I also love how you said or spring water, which my good friend Mason Hutchison from Herbal, who recommended you for the show, he's a huge spring water enthusiast. So yeah, so it's cool to see one of those being opted for. But I'm excited to try this with the coconut water and other succus as well. Like I could see cleavers and chickweed and these kind of springtime greens would be lovely for that. And it's interesting you're talking about, use it fresh. And you said where you are, it's always available fresh. So that kind of speaks to that as well. And I'm guessing probably in a lot of climates in various places, and India is probably similar, that it's, I could see Mexico too. There's these typically warmer climates having access to this all year round. I have a couple, I have a lot of snow on the ground right now. So it's no. But in other places, yes. But yeah, it sounds absolutely, just incredibly refreshing. Like you said, this like little chlorophyll boost.
I think we need more chlorophyll because the chlorophyll, I don't think people realize it degrades after 48 hours and it turns to chlorophyllin. And then that degrades even more after 2 weeks. So even if we go to the grocery store and we're buying Swiss chard or whatever we're buying, like doesn't have the chlorophyll our body needs, our blood needs to stay properly, like the hemoglobin, just keep a better form that oxygenates our blood better. And so I've just been really going really deep with chlorophyll and realizing how much that pigment is so good for our health. But we're not getting what we need in North America. In modern countries, we're not getting what we need. But yeah, there was something else I was going to tell you about hydrocotyle, and I think I spaced it. Maybe it'll come back to me. There was something else about that, but I don't remember. Sorry.
Well, while you're thinking about that, I'll just let all the listeners and watchers know that you can download your copy of this beautifully illustrated recipe. You can check out the show notes or go to herbswithrosaleepodcast.com. And yeah, it's super simple. I'm excited to make it as well.
Yeah, very simple, which I love. And two, for people that have, inflammation in the urinary system, that they need, if they have low energy and they need a little bit more of a boost, I feel like it's so good just to pulverize, fresh wild herbs and water and just drink it, and sometimes I'll use aloe pulp because again, I am Pitta and I have sometimes get inflammation in my urinary system and that just takes it out. The aloe vera with some, hydrocotyle and water is so good for you and so simple, and it's always there. Well, at least here it's always there. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. For those people that don't have it, or it's winter and it's snow, one of the members in Wild Herb Academy sent me a picture of these beautiful pots with hydrocotyle, and they grow it in temples, and I don't remember if it, I know it was in Asia somewhere, but I don't know exactly where, but there was just these beautiful pots full of hydrocotyle. And so it could grow in a pot. You could buy it. I've seen it on Etsy. Like I've gone on Etsy and I've seen all different types of hydrocotyle plants. So you could always buy it and grow it. I gave some to my mom, and my mom lives in Norfolk, Virginia, and it's native to there, but it's not as common as it is here. And it grew, it took. She put it right by this little pond she has, and it's growing great.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, hearing you talk about like just how important chlorophyll is and how important freshness is, just reminds me there's a lot of people who don't have access to really fresh food. Even if you buy fresh fruits or vegetables at the store, they might be a week old or more, before they actually get eaten. And so this is a cool way to just get super fresh plants into our systems.
Very much so. And so fast and so easy, and really good for people that are dealing with inflammation and itises. Because sometimes I don't feel like hot teas can be that great for some people in their constitutions. And that was like me, like, oh, drink this and drink that and dandelion tea and this and that. And it's like, well, actually, that's not that great for me. And I knew that intuitively, but it wasn't until I really started applying the practices of Ayurveda like 15 years ago that I was like, yeah, no, that makes sense. Like that, I can't do that. And so that's why I think I gravitate towards those water infusions with any herb I'm working with over a hot tea infusion. It just always feels better to me. It always leaves my body feeling happier than like a strong decoction of a tea or something.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, is there anything else that you'd like to go over with hydrocotyle before we move on?
Try and eat it. So I will say this. So it's not how many wild herbs you know, it's how well you know each one. And for the longest time, I would do foraging walks, and all the students would be like, April, what's that? And I'm like, I don't know. For the longest time, probably like at least 5 years, students being like, April, what is that? And I'm like, I don't know. And so I think that was a lesson really for other herbalists and other students. It's like, you have to wait and to form that relationship. Even if you see like an herb on, trending on Instagram or this or that. Like everyone's doing blue lotus or everyone's doing blue butterfly pea. Like that's not really what is going to help you, I feel, form a deep relationship with the plant. What's going to really help you is like when the plant picks up on you and you pick up on the plant and the timing is right, because the timing really had to be right for me and Hydrocotyle to bond. And then we finally did. But just like there's another plant, it's called, it's Philanthus. It's like a kidney stone root or something, and it grows all over my yard. And last year I felt like it was really the time and I was going to go in with it. And I've known about this plant and its healing properties for like 15 years, but I have not yet connected with it. So it's like you really have to be slow and take your time, and if the plant's not talking to you, then that's okay. You just wait. That's what I've learned from Hydrocotyle, because I knew it was medicine for the longest time, but I wasn't going to teach people what I just read. I don't teach people until I know what it does in my body. And so that would be my advice as an herbalist, is like, just really, that's the benefit too of connecting with wild plants, because one, there's ecological herbalism, and you get to really view the plant and you watch the plant for a while. And then you pick up on its energy and its footprint, and your energy is picking up, and you're exchanging information, and then you do it. It's kind of like a friendship. So that would be what I would share with that, because it's patience. There's patience when it comes to herbalism.
It's so true. I've had that experience so many times where there's just been a plant that like just wasn't really like up for me, and then all of a sudden it just seemed like that plant's everywhere I go. It's on my mind. There's so much to think about. And then I just become enraptured. And that's the time to just pay attention and dive in.
I love that. Yeah, that because the plant is going to pop up and speak to you, and it's communicating that it wants you to work with it. I think that is when you really have to be like, okay. And there's another thing, like we have to take the time too, and that's what we want to do as herbalists, but sometimes we're busy doing other things.
Yeah, there's something to be said for the value of paying attention.
Very much. And honoring that and trusting your intuition. And when you're first getting started, I feel like it took me a long time. And maybe that's the path, that's the path that we take, where we are more reliant on what we read and what we're learning from other people. And then we develop some kind of sovereignty and empowerment where we embody it more, and we don't have to open the book anymore, because the book are the plants outside. And so maybe that is just like the path, maybe. But if you can shorten it, and you can just know that you can learn so much from the plant before going to a book, or maybe you even just try and feel into it and intuitively write down what you think the plant is for, or how you want to connect with it, and then you read. I wish someone would have taught me that when I was really young, first learning herbalism. I think that would have been really empowering to me at a young age.
That just reminds me of your origin story. And I just love how people planting pansies just immediately grabbed you. You're just like, yep, that's what I'm doing. I just love that so much. That's so I feel like that a lot of people have that experience where suddenly it's just they got turned on by plants. It's like, oh, okay, I hear you. I'm here for you.
Yeah, that memory. It's like I don't have that many memories from my childhood, but that at times literally stood still. It literally was like weird. Everybody disappeared, and all I could see was Miss Spears and those students in that greenhouse, and it was just like. And so, yeah, if you ever have this moment in your life, whether you're at a conference or you're somewhere in another country, and you're just like, time starts to stand still, and that's your soul speaking like, hey.
Yeah, that's great advice right there, April, for sure. Well, I'd love to hear what you have going on. I know you have some exciting projects coming up.
Yeah, I wrote a book. It's called Foraging Wild Herbs, 30 Healing Plants Along the Carolina Coast. And that comes out April 14th. So depending on when you're watching this, it may be out, but you can already pre-order it on Amazon and USC Press. Like you can go to USC Press. And that was a dream come true. I worked really hard on that for a long time. And I kind of already always envisioned myself writing a book. And so it feels good to finally have that desire and turn it into, manifest that. And there's so much time and energy that went into that. The hydrocotyle recipes in there. And there's other plants, like magnolia, grand magnolia, and some other plants that maybe herbalists don't know, or no one's working with largely. And so it took me a long time because I had to work with them all independently. So like 5 years. And yeah, it took me 5 years. And so it feels really good. And then I teach medical botany, which is that every time I teach it, I get so excited. And so I know that's right for me to teach, because it's kind of like for students to go from learning a limited amount to learning an unlimited amount of herbs, and how they want to approach it and how they want to interact with nature. And I feel as I'm, getting older and meditating more and having my own morning meditation practice, that I'm able to be stronger in sharing my spirituality and weaving spirit and with science, which I always wanted to do, when I was a botanist for the government. And I kind of had to keep those separate. So like I have my spiritual side, and then I have the science. So it's such a beautiful thing to have them weaving together like two strands. So that at this time in my career, my path, my dharma really is my dharma. It feels so beautiful. And so I'm trying to just be completely open and coming from my heart and my soul. But helping students use the left and the right side of the brain, and realizing like the importance of that, and how it's not woo-woo, and people can really understand that it's important, to use the right side of your brain. And that's a huge part of herbalism. But then, of course, there's the big left side, too, that I weave in there, being a botanist, and we geek out on all the science and the Latin. And so that's good. And I'll probably continue to teach that for who knows, right? Until the day I die. I don't know. I maybe teach medical botany until the day I die, because I love it. And we are really fortunate because we have a teacher from India, Nishant Gurave. And he worked with the Gond tribe, which is one of the oldest tribes in India. And he just has this depth to him. And he's such a beautiful soul. And I interviewed him on the Wild Herb podcast. And I have very few episodes, but he was the first person I ever interviewed. And he's just, you'll have to interview him. He has this, because in India, their spirit, right? Their connection to the soul and the spirit and spirituality is a huge part of their life. And so it's just awesome for him. Like he will get, encourage students to write proverbs on plants, and how they pray with holy basil in the morning. They pray with holy basil 3 times a day. And his mom would light a candle with holy basil, and they don't forage it at night. And there's all these beautiful practices where they're honoring the plant. And so I feel like it's really an honor to be able to work with him, because I feel like I've been missing that in this country, which I'm sure you feel too, and all of us herbalists and medicine people, and we realized at one point, like, I don't know if you felt this, but I felt this growing up, that I was always like categorized as the flower child, or I didn't fit in with all the cliquey people. And it didn't occur to me till I went to this festival called the Gathering of the Peacemakers that I was a medicine person, and that's why. But in another country, I might have been acknowledged, and had a mentor, and I didn't have that. So it took me a really long time to understand this connection and this gift. And so I would also, if you're watching and you feel that, and sometimes you don't want people to think you're woo-woo, or you don't want to sound a certain way, definitely just be authentic. We have to be authentic in our country because we need it the most. So being able to see Nishant come out and just be so open with his spirituality and his family's spirituality and how it relates to plants, it's very refreshing for me. So yeah, and those are the big ones. And I hope to maybe work on book number 2 this year after it gets published in April.
Wow. That's such beautiful offerings, and that was just beautiful sentiments that you shared as well. And I know that must resonate with a lot of people. Where can they find you best?
So I have wildherbacademy.com is a good place to go. And I try to post stuff on there, whatever I'm doing. I've gotten better about having things like the offerings be a little bit more up front and center. And then I'm on social media and Instagram and Facebook. And yeah, and that's where you can find me online. And I do in person too, because I think that's important. And so I do a retreat on the East Coast. I'm doing Good Medicine Confluence, and actually I'm drinking out of their mug. So I'll be there if you want to come hang out in New Mexico, Santa Fe, like Albuquerque. It's so beautiful. It's called the Ghost Ranch, and I loved it. Highly recommend it. The trails and the native plants are unbelievable. So I'll be doing that. But because I think it's important for us to get together too in person.
Absolutely. Well, April, before you go, I have one last question for you. And that question is, what's something that herbs have taught you that you maybe weren't expecting?
That's a really good question. So I think definitely the ecology of plants, the herbal, herbal ecology. I didn't ever expect that I was going, to maybe pay as much attention, or that it really is a thing. I never knew it was a thing. I took ecology in college, I studied ecology, applied it in my careers. And of course, I learned herbalism and studied herbalism all on the time too. And just lately, like in the past 5 years, I have really been honing in on where the plant's growing, how it's growing, to really help me learn about the energetics from an Ayurvedic standpoint. And so that's been fascinating. Just like, plants that are getting a ton of sun, tend to help dry up the system more, where plants that are drying and cool and moist are really good for inflammation. They help bring more earth and water to people that are fire and air. And I would say that's about 80% of the time for like conditions, we can heal it with the opposite element. And those plants embody that by where they're growing. And so that's been a lot of fun for me. I didn't expect that. And I'm just going to keep diving deeper and paying more attention to ecological herbalism. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's no way for us to get bored as herbalists, because we can keep upturning, I was going to say stones, but we could look at the other sides of leaves for the rest of our lives and be entertained and enthralled.
For sure. Yeah. I think we'll be learning. I know I'll be learning until the day I take my last breath, And that's the beauty of doing what you love, is because there is no retirement. Right?
Yeah.
There's no retirement. It's almost like it just gets more fun and more mysterious, and learning about plants and their energy and how they respond to us and all that fun stuff. Kind of out.
Yeah, so true. Well, April, it's been so lovely to sit down with you and hear about your story, hear about Pennywort. And I'm excited to come across this plant again. Now I'll know.
Yeah. Send me a picture when you find it in the field, because I'd be curious to know which one you have. I think, if I remember correctly, the one is ranunculoides. Where do you live again?
I'm in Eastern Washington, so it's going to probably be more either higher up along a stream bed, or on the other side of the mountains where it's a little bit moister.
Yeah, that'd be really cool to see. Yeah, I'd be curious. It's so fun where you live. Well, thank you for having me on. It was a lot of fun, and I feel like I want to hear more about you and your journey. Maybe I'll have you on the Wild Herb podcast.
That'd be lovely. And I hope to make it to the Carolinas one day, so it'd be lovely to have a cup of tea.
Yeah, let me know. Let me know.
Well, thanks again for being here, April.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. You can download your illustrated recipe card from today's episode. Just head to herbswithrosaleepodcast.com or check out the show notes for a link. If you're not already subscribed, I'd love to have you as part of this herbal community so I can deliver even more herbal goodies your way. This podcast is made possible in part by our awesome students. This week's student spotlight is on Mike Terry in Idaho. Well, Mike is an active participant in the Herbal Energetics course and brings decades of experience and a deep curiosity to his learning. Through hands-on exploration, working with herbs and teas and tinctures and foods and more, he's developed a nuanced understanding of how plants affect the body. His reflections show a growing trust in his own observations, as well as a deep respect for the plants themselves. Whether harvesting, preparing, or simply sitting with them, Mike approaches herbalism with intention and reciprocity, reminding us that this practice is as much about relationship as it is about knowledge. To honor his contributions, Mountain Rose Herbs is sending Mike a $50 gift certificate to stock up on their incredible selection of organically and sustainably sourced herbal supplies. Thank you so much, Mountain Rose Herbs, for supporting our amazing students. And if you'd like to deepen your skills as an herbalist, you can check out my foundational courses at herbswithrosalee.com. Okay, you've made it to the end of the show, which means you get a gold star and this herbal tidbit. Here's something fascinating about hydrocotyle. So for a long time, it was grouped in the carrot family, the Apiaceae, along with aromatic, volatile oil-rich plants like fennel and cilantro. But modern taxonomy has placed hydrocotyle in the Araliaceae family, and that's the same family as ginseng. So this low-growing, lawn-level weed is botanically related to one of the most revered tonic roots in the world. Now, that doesn't mean that hydrocotyle acts like ginseng. It definitely doesn't. But I do find it fascinating that they share a family. As always, thanks for joining me. I'll see you in the next episode.